Yo, what up guys, it's Flark, and welcome to the update video that I promised for Unholy. Unholy is exactly as powerful as predicted this season, with the build diversity that I predicted this season, which means there is a huge opportunity for all Unholy DKs everywhere to get whatever arena goals and arena dreams they have this season. Recently, I was able to get this red dragon mount for Gladiators. Very pretty. Actually, it does look really good, so huge props to the art team for that. If you are struggling at all early in the season, it is because MMR is deflated, which means there are better players playing at lower rating, which is very hard, especially for people who do not have time to play this game all day. If you're just playing against way better players at the same rating, that can get pretty difficult. If you're not struggling, keep doing that. That's very good. Congratulations. That's huge. But yes, that is a good reason why you might be having a little bit of trouble. But if you keep getting practice, and now you're getting practice against better players, like I said, Unholy is an absolute tier 1 spec, which means when MMR does inflate and with all the practice that you have gotten, you will ascend to your wildest dreams as Unholy. Right now, we're playing at around 2550 to 2600. Perfect opportunity early in the season to practice Unholy myself and to get a ton of information. I promised I would be testing talents, PvP talents, gear, legendaries, all that stuff to give more concrete information on all those things, and I believe that I have had the opportunity to do that now. The good stuff was proven to be really good. The bad stuff, we can kick that right out, and I can give you a perfect build for pushing Gladiator as Unholy. So that's what this video is going to be, the exact setup you want to run and any small diversity or choices that you can make along the way. Of course, there's going to be timestamps below, so if there is any information that you need more specific questions answered, or just a category that you care about and you don't feel like listening to me blab the whole time to completely understand, timestamps right below for you to get that information when you want it. Otherwise, here we go. Starting with gearing. I should be able to give you guys the exact setup that you want and answer some burning questions, especially the question of tier set. Do I run it? Yes. Yes, of course you run it. Absolutely, wholeheartedly, yes, you run it. Without the 2 set. For trinkets, that gives you 40% more verse. You do not need to stack versatility into DR'd levels of verse. That is just bad output and bad stats for the cost. It's pointless. So, like I promised in the original video, if you just have a PvP piece on every single piece and the tier set, that will exactly put you at the versatility that you need. You don't need to reach for some certain amount or get some exact threshold. Just have PvP gear on, and that is the amount of verse you need. For example, that's what I'm doing, and I have exactly 30%, right on the threshold of the DR amount, so I still have that huge 30% increased healing, good damage output, 15% damage reduction without getting any DR'd amount, and I still get the effect of the 4 set. Effectively meaning it's free to run the 4 set, because at this amount of verse, I would have gone into other stats anyway. For example, the legs, haste and mastery. These are the stats that I would have put on legs even if there was no 4 set involved, because those are my 2 best stats that aren't verse, and I do not need any more verse. So if I can also get a 4 set bonus by having the stats that I want in the exact amount that I want of them, then that's just a free 4 set. Now, no, the 4 set for Unholy DK is not as good as some of the other ones like Destro Lock, but if you're getting it for free, of course you're going to put it on, and it still has some power. The 10% minion damage is fine. It's like another conduit, and if you ever get a Soul Reaper proc, you win the game, because 50% more pet damage, in my experience, finishes people off no problem. The Soul Reaper hits kind of hard. It's like a 10k hit, but that does not matter because now your pet's autoing for 10k and they're dead. And that's how it works. So yes, you will run your 4 set, and this is exactly how. Haste verse, helm, run that. Shoulders, run that. Chest, I ran haste first, so I do not run tier chest. Then gloves, you got mastery main stat. That's a fantastic thing. You don't want a lot of crit, so it's great that crit is not the main stat here. Haste mastery, legs, that is perfect. So helm, shoulders, gloves, legs, boom, you're done. There's your 4 set. Yes, you will run it. Do not be ridiculous. Furthermore, the rest of your stats, very simple. Avoid crit at all costs. Any combination of haste and mastery will do. How do I know this? I have some pretty good evidence. There's a ton of Unholy DKs running mastery on the leaderboard, very high rating. There's other Unholy DKs, including myself, running more haste. And everything in between. Some have a lot of mastery, some have no mastery, some have a lot of haste, some have no haste, and every combination, like a little bit, like 50-50, 40-60, right? How could that possibly be true? One stat has to be better. No, right? This was my evidence for why I believe those stats would be extremely functionally identical for your win rate, while being very different in how they interact with your class. Because if you have one mastery, that gives you a lot more output, but you have another one that gives you a good amount of output while also increasing utility. Resource generation, global cooldown reduction. This means more chains of ice, more death strikes. You can get them off faster because of your globals, but you can also get them off faster because of your resource gen. And just more utility because you can get more globals off in a stun in a small burst window. You can just press more abilities. You can get through your setup globals faster. All of those things are unique to haste, while mastery does not do that, but it does increase your damage by an enormous amount. We know this. It's all of your damage effectively. So what you can do is you can run whatever stat that you prioritize the playstyle of. I personally like haste because of the utility and the speeding up my rotation. It makes it more flowing to play. It feels better to play. Or you could run all mastery and just have the biggest amount of raw output during a burst window just from pets and A-bomb limb ticks. I mean, that hits so much harder with mastery. Effectively, the question is answered even though it feels open. Just play exactly the verse you get from your PvP set, exactly the tier set that I described, and then any combination of haste and mastery that you wish based on the playstyle that suits you. No crit at all, as close to 0 as possible. That means Insignia over Badge, but we already knew this. Unholy loves Insignia because it has more sustained damage. It doesn't need the 1 minute goes because it doesn't really have any cooldowns that fit perfectly into a 1 minute go. Dark Transform is the only one, but you might hold on to that for APOC. It's not that cut and dry. So Badge, no. Insignia, yes. You have pretty much no crit. You can see I got 40 and you know where it's coming from. The gloves. Again, not main stats, so that's perfect. And then I have an enormous amount of haste, but you can just, all you have to do, watch here. I can switch up the build if you're more mastery preferred. Here's how I'm gonna do it. Boom, I did it. Now I have more mastery. Whoa, hold on, there I did it. There you go. Now I have more mastery. You can just switch your jewelry or what stats you put on your legendaries that you craft, and you can effortlessly just redistribute haste and mastery to be more along your liking while still retaining that 30% mark for verse. And that is how you're going to build your character this season. No questions asked. You've got it. This is perfect. Of course, you're going to use the Rune of Fallen Crusader Runeforge. There's no other questions about gearing that I think you could ever need to ask. You got your setup right here for you. That's how you're going to build your character, and you are going to achieve this red dragon mount because it does so much raw output. The final question in the area of gearing, but not really there because, you know, never know. Legendaries, are they borrowed power? Are they stats? Are they gearing? Who knows? Frenzied Monstrosity. There's your answer. In every situation. Always. There's a lot of other legendaries for Unholy. You will not touch them. Frenzied Monstrosity is just another modifier, too much compounding damage, extremely reliable, no setup required at all, happens exactly when you need it. When you press Dark Transformation, you want to do damage, well, perfect, now you're doing more damage. It is perfectly synergistic with the exact way that we're both winning games and dealing damage this season. Frenzied Monstrosity, every situation, always. The other one is Unity. You have to run that. You know that? Perfect. It's a fantastic legendary. I'm glad we get to run it. Makes your A-bomb limb window so good, and it's part of the reason Unholy is so powerful this season, and that's gearing for you. Congratulations. Of course, we're going to do a brief touch-up on this little borrowed power bonanza, the Covenant system. Of course, you're still running Necrolord. Don't even bother asking. And we will run Plague Divisor this season. It is the most single target sustain, which is what our win condition is after. I will be talking more about that in the comp section of this video, but very simple. Just run Plague Divisor with these triple potencies: Eternal Hunger, Convocation, Brutal Grasp. They are non-negotiable. They are the best for output by far. They destroy people in your A-bomb limb go with the 66% increased A-bomb limb damage and the mastery that you get. It is, and the extra limb duration that you get, it is exactly as powerful as predicted. So yes, you absolutely run these. This is the conduit path that you need. I'll leave it up on the screen, but you're probably super familiar with it, and that's how you get triple potency, which you will run every single game. The 2 endurance are hardened bones and insatiable appetite. These give you an extra wall from Lichborn. Boom, you do 12%, you do 13% less damage to me, and I get some leech so I can heal up a little better. And of course, your sustain healing, extremely important in a meta where you're going to be queuing into Fury Unholy DK. Spoiler alert, you want to need as much sustain healing as possible, and this is a great way to get that. So that is your Covenant borrowed power system, and that is the Soulbind you should be running. That was an easy touch-up. We move directly on to what a lot of people are probably wondering about, your talent build. Unholy talents are so powerful. Almost any one of these in any row have some merit. So in order to narrow it down, I had to do some really thorough testing because they can all be run, but what is going to give you the highest win rate and the best synergy with the way that you're winning games, the style that you're winning games? And I had to do some work with different comps and a lot of games played and switch these around, but I believe that I have the answer. There are exactly two setups that you want to run this season. One of them is the pet-centric setup. That is All Will Serve, Unholy Blight, of course Asphyx, Pestilent, Spell Eater, or we'll talk about this row in a second, but generally Spell Eater, Unholy Pact, of course, Unholy Assault. This setup is entirely self-synergistic. You get more haste, which makes your pets attack faster and do more damage. You get All Will Serve, which benefits heavily from haste and mastery. You get Unholy Blight, that gives you more pet damage that buffs All Will Serve. You don't have Bargain, so you get more. You get your Army of the Dead pets plus another Army of the Dead pet from your tier set, plus 10% increased minion damage from your tier set, plus another minion to get the 10% increased minion. You see how it's all compounding. It is extremely high output all game, including nauseating burst damage just in the Unholy Assault to APOC window. Your pets do more damage, your pets attack faster, then they multiplicatively scale with that. There's so many modifiers in this set that you're never going to find anything that does more overall just raw throughput than Unholy DK doing its burst window unabated with this build. All Will Serve is probably the unexpected point, but yes, this adds a ton of chip damage, especially with the 4 set, and God forbid you get a Soul Reaper proc. I've seen this guy hit for 5k. He's just rapid firing 5ks as one is your tiny pets in this sea of unbelievable sustained pressure. You have another additional skeletal minion hitting him for 5k. There's no living against this. When Blight is up, when your 4 set procs, you just have so much raw output from so many sources. There's no way to peel it. You got your Army of the Dead ghouls, you got your disease ticking, you got your own globals, you got limb ticks, you got Unholy Blight dot ticking, you got your All Will Serve minion peppering them, Dark Transformed pet. It's just what I expected from this season, and it is a fantastic build for PvP talents with this build. Necrotic Wounds is a must in every situation. You will never swap off this PvP talent, so let's never talk about it again. It is just a default pick. So we'll talk about the third and the first choices that I have here. Raise A-Bomb is going to be controversial. Don't care. I'm known for thinking my own way. Raise A-Bomb gets a lot of heat for good reasons. It has bad targeting. It's slow and it's been nerfed sometimes, but it's still really good, especially when you have a lot of haste. And here's why. It gives you a ton of wounds over the course of the game, which means it does either two things. One, it wounds up your target, which is just fantastic because wounds are fantastic. They give you a ton of damage, of course, but they also make your cooldowns come back up faster because of Convocation of the Dead, that conduit. It does some damage. It even applies Virulent Plague, saving you a rune, and it applies at AoE, so that's great. But it also pulls people out of stealth, and against Rogue Mage, that is absurdly valuable. But against almost everything with any form of stealthy, it's absurdly valuable. Hunter, I mean, Feral. These guys want to do exactly what they want to do, which is cross CC, setup, open, nuclear damage, CC forever, you lose in the opener. Or you pop every single cooldown and then you lose the next time they do that. But if you can disrupt these openers in any way, it completely throws off what cooldowns they're going to get out of you. In fact, you start to go on them because they're running away, sprinting for a re-stealth, but there's no way to do that with Unholy because you've got all the pets and the diseases and the A-Bomb chasing them. So you actually not only get a decent amount of output for this talent, you also completely diffuse goes. RM, I think it is an auto pick. I think anybody who's not using it into Rogue Mage is foolish. Because you can still slot zone. As you can see, I have the slot right here for how you're going to still run zone against Rogue Mage. I'm not being an idiot and sacrificing my teammates for a raise A-bomb play. You can see the setup that I'm using against RMP. We were queuing into RMPs all last night, so I'm literally default in this setup. But yes, Raise A-Bomb has a ton of utility value as well as the output that it brings you. And it doesn't just bring output because it hits them for 8Ks when it can finally connect. It's sluggish, it's slow, I get that, but every attack applies a wound. And those wounds do stack up because wound is a huge percentage of our damage. With Convocation being as high item level it is, you can see you get 278 conduits from getting to elite. So, man, that's 33% wound damage. That is ridiculous when it is enhanced. So yes, that's extremely impactful. Yes, pulling people out of stealth is impactful. Yes, Virulent Plague is a good button. And I will fight people on this. I know that it is a very controversial pick because A-Bomb is stupid. I'm sorry, man, but you're a stupid idiot. He goes the wrong targets, he'll attack an Earth Ellie in the back. It is very frustrating, absolutely. And if it followed your pet autos, this would be a default pick in everybody's mind, but it doesn't. But I have found from thousands upon thousands of games playing this talent, especially in BFA, right? That BFA, this talent was a lot better. So people ran it all the time. That you can, especially against stealthies, you can position this in a way that you are going to hit what you want to hit. If I pull a rogue out and the A-bomb pulls the rogue out, and the rogue and the mage is way in the back, the priest is hiding behind a pillar, and it's just the rogue, he will attack the rogue, which is fantastic because I want to go rogue. If I pull the rogue out, I want to hit them. It completely diffuses their opener. They don't have a lot of defensives. Rogues have no sustained healing, so Unholy destroys them. You have resets, but if you're just chasing around a pillar with 16 different sources of damage, rogue can't actually do anything. You can destroy rogue as Unholy. So if I pull him out, and A-Bomb starts slapping at him, I'm getting another 50k damage and 12 wounds, especially with all my haste, and maybe even more than that I would have never gotten, as well as completely stopping their opener. So that was a lot of conversation about one PvP talent, and I know that's because I'm going to get pushback, but I don't care. I say the things that I believe are true, and I do believe Raise A-Bomb is completely good. I assure you, I'm going to have streams with me running this talent nearly every game. And if we are able to get rank 1 this season, most of my audience, I think that would be an awesome goal to get. So I would at least then prove that I can get rank 1 with Raise A-Bomb, so you should be able to get rating with Raise A-Bomb. That is what I believe. So that's my first row talent. I almost always run this. I know that's so ridiculous. But if I was running DHDK, I would swap to this. I've been running a lot of Fury TSG, of course, and Windwalker DK, which will be talked about more. Spoilers, huge spoilers, in the comp section. But if I were running DHDK, I would absolutely run Necrotic Aura, because Warrior and Windwalker don't get almost any value out of 8% increased magical damage, but of course DH does. So I would just switch out Raise A-Bomb to benefit my partner's damage more, then I don't have to deal with his dopey AI, and we would still get a ton of output. So that's just a thought there. And then the third slot is generally the utility slot. You can see that I have it on Dome now. You see I was talking about RMP. Nothing is ever going to change. You Dome into RMP. I guess in 9.2.5 it's going to change because they're taking this out of the game and making it default 50. We'll see what other choices they make. I'm not going to talk about that yet. But Zone, 80% Zone, you need it for RMP. You need it for all the wizards going around, all the mage locks going around. Ret, you still need it for Ret. You still need it for DHDK. So you're running this pretty much all the time. This is your utility slot where you effectively say, okay, I'm going to put Dome of Ancient Shadows in this slot, or I'm going to run Spell Warden. Because if they're really only going to go melee, like this works against like jungles where you know the hunter is like either running a little bit of extra magical damage from Flayed, or you know, well, he's survival, and then you know he's going to have magical damage. Spell Warden, Zone isn't very good against survival sustain, right? I mean, they're always doing damage. What are you going to zone? You're just going to press it there and you're going to be like, cool, okay, well, he's going to kill me right after this ends, dude, thanks. Spell Warden is way better because it's all the time. So you're constantly getting a healing output, and you're protecting against anything the healer priest wants to do to you, because, you know, Holy Priest can actually hit hard nowadays for whatever reason. So Holy Priest can chunk you, Survival can chunk you, chucking bombs at you and grenades from across the map. They all do magical damage. They're fire damage, right? So Spell Warden, very good into single target sustained situations. That could be like enhance something. And that can also be Survival Hunter, or it can just be Jungle with Flayed Shot. And of course, if they have a Holy Priest, he's going to be cranking you too. So Spell Warden there, otherwise Zone for everything else. You run Zone into Ret, you run Zone into DHDK, you run Zone into RMP, you run Zone into Wizards, you run Zone into Mage Lock, or LA Boomy, or Shadow Priest Lock. I mean, this is kind of like the Zone slot that you can sometimes switch off of if you're crazy. The other thing that I've run, and I'm going to talk about this, is Doom Burst. I've actually gotten some value out of Doom Burst. I had it on stream last night against a jungle. We ran down the Feral Druid, and I ran Doom Burst because he's just running the entire game. And if he can ever stabilize, they win. But if he never stabilizes, they lose, because he just has to sit there and run around in circles the entire game, and that does not kill us. It does not kill us for a Feral to sit there and run around in circles. So Doom Burst has been really good for that, because every time he kites out of range, if I ever get a proc, if I ever had a proc that I can pull, sometimes I run Harbinger of Doom when I'm running Doom Burst. If I can pull these procs, and then right when he gets away, I can get a big burst on him, which does a ton of damage, but also reduces him by 90%. So I'm effectively getting a damaging chains global, because, you know, he's shifting all your chains. So if you just chains and he shifts and chains and he shifts, you're not getting any damage out of that interaction. You're just trying to keep him slowed. But if you're doing damage with your slow, this is actually very bad for the Feral. If you pull 2 of these procs and you Doom Burst him, he has to shift, and then Doom Burst him again, you actually just slowed him while killing him, and that's very bad as he shifts and shifts and shifts, but is slowly rotting to death. It's a really good grind out a Feral Druid talent, so of course I wanted to give them that the nod. Anything else on this list? I really haven't found that value, though Death's Echo was fun into mages. It's sometimes worth a try if you're really struggling to stay on a mage, but every time you touch him, he's pretty much dead. Death's Echo is a good way to touch him more. Do not take that the wrong way. But that is one setup. The PvP talents are going to be all the same idea for the other setup, so let's just take a look at it right now. Boom, 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 boom. There it is. One change that you gotta make, of course, right here. And if you don't need zone, if you don't need utility, you can go back to my friend, because of course, wound generation is extremely valuable when you have Pestilent for bursting wounds, bursting sores for bursting wounds, and Army of the Damned. You'll be bursting wounds all the time because you have APOC more often, so if you have better generation for those, and by the way, Army of the Damned gives you your Raise A-Bomb up quicker. Otherwise, the Army of the Dead portion of this talent does nothing, because you can't use Army of the Dead in the arena, but if you have Raise A-Bomb, this actually gets a ton more valuable. So when you run Bargain, it gives even more weight to our friendly neighborhood fat zombie man. But it is actually extremely high single target output. This build, while the other one has more burst, it's more centric around pet, it synergizes better with your 4-set. This build is never-ending damage all the time. Play it with a Holy Priest, you're going to lose your mind. You have wound generation from claws, wound generation from A-Bomb, wound burst power from bursting swords, wound burst power from pestilent pustules, faster cooldown generation for Army of the Damned both on your rune generation and on Necro Bargain, which is going to apply Crypt Fever, and you're going to get it back up all the time, and you're just going to keep your wounds on them, which means also you're going to have a higher uptime on Sharpen for necrotic wounds, and this build is just so much sustain damage. I'll talk a little bit more about it in the comp version or section of this video, but holy cow, you never ever run out of damage. You always have it. At any time, if you need to put Sharpen on them, effectively, because that's what Necro Wounds is, when you pair it with another Mortal Strike, it's like a Sharpened Blade. But when anytime you need to put that on them, get some burst window out and a stun, you always can, because you're going to have that APOC, Crypt Fever, Bursting Sores, damage, and you're getting your Fat Man back up quicker, and you're getting your Bargain up quicker from Army of the Damned. Just huge self synergies in this. Of course, it even plays with Convocation of the Dead, which gives you even more APOC reducing cooldown and more Festering Wound damage. It is just... Festering Wound's going to be your top damage, never-ending sustain, permanent Sharpen on the enemy team when you're playing with a Fury Warrior. It is a crushing single target build. So, those are the two setups. They are much more precise and defined than my original video, and those are the two that you can run. You can pause the video at any point when I'm going over them. They've been up on the screen for a long time. Those are exactly 2 setups, right? There's no other choices that you would make when you're running one setup. You would run it exactly this way. When you're running the other setup, you would run it exactly this way. The only thing that I could think of is the Doomburst Harbinger option, which I liked into that Feral Druid that one time. It was super fun. But that's it. Those are your talent setups. And the PvP talents I already talked about, of course, with the bargain build. You need bargain. It's named after bargain, so you're going to want that PvP talent in there. That bargain build, again, is that swap over to the left side of the... It's funny. One's left, one's right, it looks like. But those are your builds for Unholy. When are you going to choose between each one? Well, let me answer that question. With the comps section of this guide, you got 3 of them that I believe you could easily push this season with to your wildest expectations. Once MMR inflates, you will ascend with it with any one of these 3 comps. Those 3 comps are Warrior DK, Windwalker DK, Demon Hunter DK. Good prediction for me at the beginning of the season. There are the other options that I talked about in the first video, the comp video, like boomies and locks, but to heck with it. I'm not going to go involved in those because I know these 3 comps work, and boomies and locks will be playing with other guys anyway. You're not going to tear a lock away from Lock Mage. How are you going to convince him to play with something that's not a Frost Mage? He'd have to be a lunatic, right? But these comps are going to be popular. People want to play these comps. Starting with TSG, that is Fury Warrior Unholy DK. Predicted this one 2 months before the season started, and it is glorious. Fury Warrior, high single target damage, high single target sustain, high single target burst. A stacking Mortal Strike effect that stacks with your necrotic wounds, high self-healing, high mobility, good grinder power, never runs out of damage. Unholy, all the same things. All of that too. They perfectly synergize in the one win condition of pick a target, do all your damage to that target forever, win game. That is what Fury Unholy does. You find the target that's squishiest. Lock. Ret. Enhance maybe in Turbo, but you can swap between Enhance and Warrior if it's an Archer. It's really good to target swap. Shadow Priest. God, you demolish Shadow Priest. It's DK in TSG. In a mirror, you'd probably hit the DK. That's probably the best bet. DKs have a ton of survivability, but when you have a double stacking Mortal Strike, their self-healing goes way down. You just... Windwalker, also another good option. You just find the target that takes the most damage that you guys can stick on, and you just do your overwhelming, unlimited source of damage to it all game. You guys continue to apply your Mortal Strike, you rotate cooldowns, you rotate defensive cooldowns, you never get off that target. The healer ooms and runs out of cooldowns, and he's like, well, I have no mana and no cooldown, so we lose. And that is how Fury Unholy wins. It is easily one of the most unbelievably mindless versions of Unholy DK comps that I think I've ever seen. But who cares? That's what this season is. You have wizards sitting in a triangle casting Frostbolt with the most brain power required, right? It's overwhelming. All you have to do is bind Frostbolt to a spell and then do this. Right? So that's Frost Mage right now. So I don't think we're so, disappointed that we have a pretty mindless comp as well. And Unholy Fury is that comp. Just do a ton of damage the entire time. You should be able to find a way to win. Windwalker DK. This one is bizarre and unexpected from me. I think it's just because of Windwalker's 4-set just makes it, and 2-set just make it do so much just raw, again, damage. Like, when you're ticking Fists of Fury for 20k and then you have a DK to grip them in, yeah, of course that's going to be good. And the reason Unholy is so good with that is because they're going to press every single button in the game on the grip, sweep, Fists of Fury go from your Windwalker, because you can't not. It's going to kill you. So with Unholy, after they've pressed every button in the game, you still have damage. With Frost, you also have a 2-minute go. So who cares if you have more damage during that go? They already pressed every button in the game. But Unholy says, aha! They pressed every single defensive cooldown because my Windwalker used Fists of Fury when they were all stacked in a triple sweep. I guess I'll just keep doing damage, and now they have no way to deal with this because Unholy's output is so high. So yes, Unholy Windwalker, a surprise from me. But absolutely, I believe it's one of the best comps Unholy can play. All you have to do is grip somebody in, tell him to sweep, A-bomb Lim on top of it, you both cleave like fucking crazy, he press Fists of Fury, all of them say, oh my god, Trinket wall, please keep me alive, and then you just, you find the target with who pressed the most defensives and is the easiest to swap to, and you just go that guy for the rest of the game because now he has no defensives and you both do a ton of damage. In the next grip sweep go, they probably all die. You have another one in a minute, their trinkets come back in 2 minutes, they probably all die. So that's an Unholy Windwalker for you. Now that I've established those two comps, I'd like to do something very, very important, which is now show where the fruits of our efforts in experimenting have come to play. With the Fury Unholy setup, this build makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because Fury has a lot of sustained single target, and this build is the one for sustained single target. So, you need a situation, when Flark should I use Bargain? I like it a lot, but I don't know when I should use either one. Try to prioritize Fury Unholy using this setup. I think it's going to synergize better with the way that Fury does damage. So again, keeping this on the screen. And of course, I don't think I have to tell you, but I'll tell you anyway. What do you think I'm going to recommend for Windwalker DK? It has more burst. You can cosplay as a Frost DK by running the burst build, but then you can do what a Frost DK could never do, which is do damage outside of Pillar of Frost. So after that huge go, you continue doing damage, then you grip sweep in a minute and they're probably dead. This is the burst-centric build, and it really puts them off balance with their defensives because Unholy Assault comes back in 1 minute, 1.3 minutes. So you're gonna do the first disgusting go, then you're gonna do a second grip sweep go, and then right after that, you're gonna do Unholy Assault APOC. Because he kills people with sweep fists. You're gonna do grip sweep on cooldown, even though you won't have Unholy Assault for it. And then you're just gonna press that after. You're putting them so off balance with the way they can answer your offensive cooldowns, and eventually they just simply die to no answer. How do you deal with a grip sweep that you have no trinket for, and then you barely live into Unholy Assault APOC, which you have no answer for? It's very difficult, and this build actually works insanely well. That's what I've been playing in almost every game when I played Windwalker DK, and I think that you will like it too. So finally, Demon Hunter DK. Remember, big change here. You really want to use Necrotic Aura every time you're playing with a DH. It just makes them do so much more damage, and of course you get value from that as well. This one is the I don't know, whatever comp, because DH has a ton of single target damage and sustain, and its meta lasts for like 60 seconds when you combine demonic with the 4-set, and then the meta, you have demonic meta, then meta, then another demonic meta, and your meta is increased by the 4-set, so that's like 60 seconds of sustained metamorphosis, which is kind of leading to a sustain build. But also, you have the Fell Rush proc, and then its 2-set makes it do an absurd Blade Dance damage, plus the Blade Dance Conduit that makes it do an enormous amount of Blade Dance burst, which means the burst build could probably be good. So, I'm gonna let you guys choose whichever one you want. You will have good success with either, as long as you do exactly this. Grip a healer to the DPS, press Chaos Nova and A-Bomb Lim. He cleaves, you cleave, everybody cleaves, they have to all trinket, Lim continues pulling them in, Blade Dance is all the time. You don't need like a setup as DHDK. You do that initial setup, but then every time they get pulled in by the random procs of Lim, he's just doing his rotation. His rotation just oozes damage. It's not like you have to be like, okay, I hope an A-Bomb Lim comes in at the end of your Blade Dance. You have Immo Aura, you have Fell Rushes, you have Blade Dance, you have the A-Bomb Lim tick damage, you have Sweeping Claws from your pet, you have Unholy Blight. You're just doing so much raw AoE damage that as long as you just grip the healer in, Chaos Nova all of them, and then Lim, no matter who is yanked back into the torrent blender of death, you're going to be cleaving them, you're going to be killing them all, and you can just keep swapping based on whoever is the lowest or whoever doesn't have defensives. Oh my god, it's the Hunter. He turtled that first go, let's just go him. Okay, you can't get a Demon Hunter off of him because Demon Hunter mobility is obscene. You kill him after turtle. Oh, the Feral walled there. Hunter still has Trinket. Let's go Feral the rest of the game. Oh my god. Do you see this? We pulled both the Rogue and Mage out with Raise Abomination. That's incredible. Let's go Rogue from the beginning. Mage blocked to finish during Combust. Just swap to the Mage. You have, as this comp, the most swap potential. the highest overall AoE sustained output. You have good defensives to rotate with Darkness and Zone, and you have a fantastic AoE go by gripping them, novaing them, and then limbing on top of it to keep them swirling in the torrent blender of destruction. And that's Unholy DK comps. All three of those extremely valuable. I know there's some weird things I didn't mention, like S-Priest DK and Boomy DK. You're like, what the heck gives? We were so high on this. S-Priest DK was amazing in BFA Season 4. It's probably fine now, but I just can't imagine playing a Shadow Priest in this meta without another caster on your team is going to be good, because imagine what a Fury Unholy DK, as mentioned, would do to a Shadow Priest DK right now. I think they would find the Shadow Priest and they would kill the Shadow Priest, and the DK cannot do anything for him. When Shadow Priest was near immortal with all the trading that they could do in BFA Season 4, sure, your raw pressure was so high you could play it, it would be great, but right now, I don't know how you're keeping a Shadow Priest alive against Unholy DK Fury Warrior in this meta, playing that comp. So I'm leaving those out. Maybe things will change. Of course, I'll make another video if some crazy new comp comes to fruition, but those are the big three that I believe you can run, and that, my friends, is Unholy DK this season. That is my advice for getting Gladiator this season. Hopping on your own Red Dragon mount. That's how you're going to build your gear. That's the answers about tier sets. That's the legendaries that you will be running. That's the conduit path that you're going to pick. And that's the comps and talents that you will run for each comp, and the talents that you like for each situation. That is everything that I can possibly think of. And I really hope that answers all your questions. I really do think this is going to be the funnest season for Unholy in a while, and thank God we needed it. So, Godspeed, gentlemen, ladies. I hope you win every single game. Good luck.